Hey everyone, hope you had a great holiday season, Christmas and New Year. Wanted to jump right into this new year with a market update. It's been a few weeks since we've done one of these, and so a lot's happened. Want to cover kind of a 2025 review as to what's happened in the markets, but then also cover some of the news from the past weekend. With what's going on in Venezuela. So we're not going to dive too deep into that, but at least want to cover what's happening from a market standpoint, from an investment standpoint with that. So first things first, let's talk about what the global markets looked like last year for 2025. As you may recall, it was a little bit of a choppy year. It started out pretty well. Then in April, when some of the tariffs actually went into effect, you may recall that there was a very severe drop at the beginning of April in pretty much every global market. Stock market took a pretty heavy hit. There was a lot of worry about what was happening from a tariff standpoint, how it was actually going to affect the global economy, and it definitely had an effect. It was kind of a year of those low lows, high highs. It had an effect. Some governmental resources jumped into play. Um, but also, people started to figure out, and the market started to figure out that while the tariffs, yes, were going to have an effect, there were some other things that were happening in the markets that more than offset what was happening, namely AI, which has been a really big driver of what's happening in the markets, as well as some monetary policies, easing of fiscal policies, reducing interest rates across the world, etc. So what actually happened from that is that we ended up with a pretty large rally. It was actually the first time since the great financial crisis, 2007, 8, and 9, where the U.S. market lagged the global markets. But all of that being said, the U.S. market still did pretty well. Excluding value, the domestic markets were up 43%. Emerging markets, this would be China, Southeast Asia, places like that, were up 35 and 34% between growth and value. Um, Growth markets here in the US up 21%. So, and then large value up 18%. So overall, 2025 turned out to be a very solid year. We did see some reductions in interest rates, as you're well aware, and all of this is kind of lining up for us to well, we don't really know, but to continue the rally, hopefully. Um, AI is still a big driving force in all of these markets. There's a lot of information that's out there as far as what this is doing, but AI is not just propping up the tech sector, it's also propping up a variety of international markets. It's propping up a bunch of other industries as there's infrastructure that goes into building out all of the tech needs that come along with just the huge data resources that are required for the AI industry. All of that being said, where does that leave us moving forward? Well, you're going to be shocked to hear me say this, but what it really leaves us looking at is making sure that we have a globally diversified portfolio, that we're taking advantage of all of these different asset classes, and that we're rebalancing the portfolio on a regular basis. In short, it's all the stuff that we've been preaching for years now. And it's the stuff that we will continue to preach and that we will continue to do so that we can build portfolios that work for you in the long run. We want to take advantage of short-term bumps, but we also want to make sure that it's built for a long haul, and that we can take advantage of the ups and the downs of the markets as they happen. Now, since this chart came out and since we kind of built the what we were going to talk about this week, there's been other news, of course, as far as what's going on in Venezuela, with the extraction of the president of Venezuela, bringing him to New York, charging him with drug crimes, and well, creating a fairly unstable environment in Venezuela right at this moment in time. I don't want to dive into the politics of that, but I do want to look at what that's doing to the markets. And what it's doing to the markets is, over the last 2 days, we've had a pretty sharp incline in the domestic markets as well as the world markets. Well, what's driving that? Well, Venezuela sits on huge, huge natural resources, not just oil, but also gold and other minerals that are very useful to the world economy. Those minerals and oil have not been extracted very efficiently over the past 20 to 30 years while they've been dealing with dictatorships in Venezuela. What that looks like moving forward, it's really hard to say, but right now the markets are betting on that being a positive thing from a global standpoint economically. Um, so we'll continue to monitor this situation. We'll have more information that will come out. As you know, we try really hard to be apolitical about these things. What we're looking at is saying, okay, how is this going to affect our portfolios? How is it going to affect our clients' money? Because what we have to pay the most attention to is making sure that, as I said before, that we're positioned well for long-term investing and that we're positioned well to make sure that we're taking advantage of all of these different geopolitical things that are happening across the world. There's lots and lots of things that happen in the world that affect the economies, and that's what we're most worried about is making sure that we're aware of what's going on. Now, all of that being said, does it mean that we change our investment philosophies and our portfolios? Not usually, because as I said, we're not terribly worried about what's happening in the short term. What we care about is making sure that we build these portfolios in the long term. And by having a globally diversified portfolio with thousands of different positions like we do, it places your money in the best position to succeed over time. If you have questions about this, if you're concerned about anything that's happening in the world, as always, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are coming into our spring season where we're going to be scheduling reviews with our clients, and so hopefully we'll get a chance to sit down over the next couple of months and talk a little bit more in depth about what's happening in your portfolios. Should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, or if you feel like this information can be beneficial for anybody that we don't know, please feel free to pass it along. And of course, we always welcome an introduction if you feel that that's warranted. As I said, I hope that everybody had a great start to their 2026. We're looking forward to a really fun year, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks. Have a great week.